Hi, I'm Madison Poisson. I am here with Mr. DeLucio. Hi, Mr. DeLucio.
How you doing, Madison?
What do you do for a living?
I've been teaching I'm a teacher at Minnetonka High School. I work with special ed education. I do academic support, but I also do a program called the Alternative Learner Program, which helps kids who are going through situations that may make coming to high school relatively difficult for them. So it's my job to help them with their subjects, but also help them feel more comfortable at school. I also do, and I do a advisor for a club called the Above the Influence Club, which is about raising awareness of drugs and alcohol, suicide awareness, domestic violence awareness for teens that are attending Minnetonka Regional High School.
So, what is the Above the Influence Club do? Like, how do they help teens?
So about 3 years ago, I started this club with about 10 kids, and now we are up to about 50. And what we do is various activities that are centered around awareness for substance abuse, domestic violence, suicide awareness, etc. We go to the soup kitchen once a month to serve the homeless or the less fortunate. We go to the Soldiers Home in Holyoke to visit with the veterans. Some of them may be dealing with PTSD, so they don't have a lot of visitors that come there, so we like to come and help out with that. Once a year we attend the Out of Darkness Walk, which is for suicide awareness. We do this, we come there, we show support, we participate in the walk, and we're always there to assist with anything they may need. And the one event that I really enjoy the most is once a month we bring in guest speakers who are normally former Minnetonka students who are recovered addicts who share their stories about what got them in the situation, what got themselves out of the situation, and what the situation of drugs and alcohol did to their lives.
So, what would you say your thoughts are on underage drinking in teens at Minnetonka?
So this is a topic that doesn't come up that often with students and myself. Even though I am the advisor for the Above the Influence Club, I try to focus on the positives and not hyper focus on the negatives. But every now and then, kids will share with me, what they think the percentage of kids that drink in the high school is. And normally they say it's a very high percentage, maybe 75% of kids experience alcohol-related events. So what I try to do is by doing the club, and also just through being a teacher and a welcome face at Minnetonka, show them that there's other things you could do besides go out and drink and have fun. Every now and then with my club, we take a break from doing club events and try to do an event on a Friday night where we just go out and do stuff. Last year we went to Shaker Bowl and the Bounce, so we try to show people on Friday night sometimes there's other things you can do and have fun besides involving alcohol and drugs.
So, as you said, there have been a lot of teenagers that do drink, but why do you think that they drink underage, even though it's like against the law and stuff?
So kids don't specifically tell me why they drink. I base some of this off of my high school experience and also just my intuition, and maybe overhearing kids every now and then have discussions about their weekends and stuff like that while they're walking in the hallways. But my main thing is thinking that kids deal with issues, whether it's family problems or maybe they have some sort of mental health issues where drinking makes them feel more comfortable. There's also kids who I think want to feel cool and hang out with the in crowd, but unfortunately that sometimes means engaging in these activities as well. But overall, my feeling is that it's just, as sad as it is, I think it's just part of the experience that teenagers feel like they are obligated to participate in while in high school, when exactly it's the opposite.
So, what would you say the harms of drinking underage to the teens?
Well, being at Minnetonka since 2003, I've probably been to maybe 10 wakes that have involved kids who have either been involved in substance abuse issues or of alcohol or drugs. And so the outcome of this has unfortunately been too many deaths. As recently as the last 3 years, I've been to 4 wakes. Some of them are drug related, some of them are alcohol related, and it's just, you would think with all the different kids losing lives that are former Minchog students that sooner or later they would start getting the message that nothing good comes out of this.
So, from being at the wakes that you've just said and hearing all these people that have had addictions, do you think that alcohol is like a gateway to other substances that are harmful to teens?
So, once again, this is my opinion, and based a lot of it off of me growing up and also speaking sometimes with kids. But unfortunately, when someone is under the influence of alcohol, your decision making is not as clear as it should be. And I feel that it's not always the kid who's drinking who's initiating the poor decision. I feel like sometimes the decision is presented to the kid who is drinking, and once this happens, they participate in the drugs that follow the drinking. I'm not saying this is all the time. Lots of kids just go out and drink, which is harmful in itself. But I do feel like sometimes when these kids are intoxicated, it just takes one time to try a drug and get addicted to it, whether you were drunk when you tried it or whether you were sober when you tried it. And I feel like that occurs.
So, thank you, Mr. DeLacio, for joining me today and
No
talking
problem.
about this podcast. Overall, what would you change to prevent teens from drinking underage?
So the first thing I would do is what I'm already doing is establishing a club that raises awareness to it. But obviously I'm one person and I don't want to have 500 kids in the club. So there's other things that you can do. The biggest thing I would say is, aside from kids participating in whether it's this club or any club for that matter, I feel like as long as you can get yourself involved. I've known lots of kids who feel like they make poor decisions because of pure boredom. So I feel like getting involved helps, whether it's joining a sports team, joining anything, is having these events that are presented at the high school from the coalition, the youth coalition that go on. We figure we have at Minichog, say 1,200 kids, say that's 2,000 parents. Most of these events that occur that I attend maybe have no more than 60, 70 parents. So I think getting parents more educated on what their kids are getting into and what they're already into would be a very good idea to try to enhance at Minichog.
So, I'm back here and I'm with Katie Rose, and she's going to explain a little bit about teen underage drinking. Hi, Katie.
Hi,
How old are you?
17.
What do you do?
I'm a high school student.
So, have you ever drank alcohol, and if so, at what age did you have your first drink?
Yes, I've drank alcohol before. I tried it for the first time at 13 years old. It's not something I do often, but because I was around it, I tried it because it was something my friends were doing.
So, how did you get the alcohol that you drank when you were 13?
One of my friend's brothers got it for us.
Why do you think that you took a sip of alcohol?
It was something my friends had been doing and I had never tried it. So I wanted to see how it felt to be drunk, and because all my friends were doing it, I thought I had to too.
What do you think the benefits of drinking are?
I'm a very shy person, so it helps me to open up, have more fun, and socialize with new people. I don't like to drink a lot, but even just having a little helps to loosen up.
So, would you say that most teenagers drink to get drunk, or do they drink just because they like the taste of alcohol?
I think most teenagers drink just to get drunk.
Why?
Most teenagers don't actually like the taste of alcohol. They do it either because they feel like they have to fit in or because they're at a party and it's expected for them to drink to have more fun.
What do you find harmful about drinking?
When people drink too much, I've had a friend that went overboard drinking and ended up in the hospital. Or there's a possibility of people getting behind the wheel and driving, thinking they're okay, and they could get seriously hurt or killed.
What else would you say?
Some people seem to get very violent and like to start fights with people, and that could end very badly.
Have you seen that around in your high school, or just like you've heard about it?
I've seen it around at my high school at some parties. Some people get very violent and like to fight other people.
So, would you say that you're for or against teen drinking?
For in moderation, I think it comes to a certain point where it's too much and you shouldn't be drinking to the point where you're addicted or need it, but just having a few sips occasionally is okay.
So, do you think that the legal age of 21 to drink alcohol should change in any way?
Yes, I think it should be 18 because you're an adult. You're old enough to make your own decisions, vote, and go into the military, so you should be able to have a drink at dinner or something as long as it's in moderation. I think if the legal age to drink alcohol was lower, then people wouldn't want to rebel and drink at an earlier age, therefore they wouldn't become addicted so young.
So, you said that you've been to a few parties and been around alcohol, but have you seen a lot of teens who have been very intoxicated?
Yes, a few of my friends have had way too much to drink, and being sober, it's very scary to watch them.
Do you think that since the drinking age is at 21, it makes teens who are underage want to drink more and rebel?
I do. I went to Italy over the summer, and because I was able to drink, it made me not want to drink. Most teenagers drink because it's an adrenaline rush or they know it's something they're not supposed to be doing.
So, do you think that if you don't drink as a teen, you don't fit in, or are teens not pressuring alcohol as much on their peers?
Teenagers don't really pressure it on other people, but we live in a very small town. There's not much to do. It kind of just works out that way, and most people are expected that they're going to drink alcohol at some point throughout high school.
So, thank you, Katie, for joining us today on the podcast. I have one final question. Do you think that the benefits of alcohol outweigh the harmfulness of it?
I think the benefits can be very good while they last, but I also think that there are many negative effects to drinking. It can affect your relationships in the long run with people. It can affect your mood negatively, and you could end up hurt or dead if you don't drink in moderation. I think that if you can't drink responsibly, you shouldn't be drinking at all. There's no reason to get behind a wheel after drinking or to be violent with anyone. So I think as long as you can handle it and know your limits, then the benefits do outweigh the harmfulness.
So I'm back and I am interviewing Kelly Brown as a parent and her perspective of underage drinking in teens and how she views it through her children. Hi Kelly, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Maddie.
How old are you?
49.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a 5th grade teacher.
Do you have any children, and if so, how old are they?
I do. I have 3 children. I have a son who is 18, one who is 16, and a daughter who is 6.
So, have you ever caught your 16-year-old or your 18-year-old being intoxicated?
I have. I caught my 18-year-old being intoxicated.
Where was he coming from?
He actually was supposed to stay over at a friend's house for the night and had called late to ask. And then we heard someone at the door, and he came home, surprised us, and came home unexpectedly. And when we went to the door, he couldn't get in the door. It was clear to us that he had been drinking.
So, when you saw that he was drinking, what did you do about it?
I was a little surprised to see him at the door. So, first of all, we knew he was intoxicated, and we wanted to make sure that he was actually okay, because there are some risks when you come home and you're overly intoxicated. If you go to sleep, there's concerns that you could aspirate, you could choke. So we had to make sure that he was settled and okay. And we didn't address the issue that night, of course. And ironically, he was being actually very funny that night. But the next day when he woke up, we had a family conversation, and we talked about his choice, and we talked about the risks of drinking alcohol underage, and there were consequences for him.
So, as a parent of teens who have underage drank before, what do you do to prevent them from going too far with alcohol or like going past their limits?
We talk a lot about the consequences of drinking, the health, not only the immediate consequences, but the long-term health consequences, behavior, how it can affect you socially. We always keep it sort of a conversation going about it and just at the forefront.
So, do you have a history of alcoholism in your family?
We do have a history of alcoholism in our family.
So, does that affect how you parent your child with alcohol?
I don't get overly anxious about that because it's not something that's affected me personally, although I know it could affect other generations. But it is something that we do mention and talk about as being part of our family history, and that the kids could be prone to, and just they should be aware of.
So, do you think that the drinking age should be lowered in the United States?
I don't think that that's a bad idea, given what we know about the statistics in Europe. It seems that when alcohol is introduced at a younger age and in moderation, that they don't have the problem and binge drinking and underage drinking problems that we have here in the United States.
So earlier I had a conversation with Mr. DeLacio, who is involved in the Above the Influence Club at a high school, which is like above substances and alcohol and underage drinking. And one of the things he said was that getting the parents involved and having them educated on underage drinking was a huge factor, and that not a lot of parents show up to these meetings and know a lot about drinking. So do you think that if parents were more involved, it would help the teens to not underage drink or go past their limits?
I definitely think that having parents involved and being part of that would encourage them to have those conversations with their kids. I feel like a lot of parents are afraid to have those types of conversations, don't want to confront the issues that may be in front of them, feel anxious about it themselves. So having them involved and giving them tips and ways that they can support their teens and maybe encourage that conversation, I think would be really helpful.
So I interviewed a high school student now currently, and she said that she did drink underage before. And when you were in high school, did you drink underage, or did you know anyone who drank underage?
When I was in high school, I knew a lot of people that drank underage, and yes, I did drink underage as well. It was unfortunately a pretty popular activity socially. There were a lot of parties, and it was pretty common, as I think it is pretty common today as well.
So do you know anyone who drank underage and are now alcoholics? And if you do, has this affected how you parent your children with underage drinking?
I have a very good core group of friends, and we all were in the same social circle and did many of the same social things, including some drinking. And two of those very good friends often drank into adulthood, and yes, actually two of them have become alcoholics as a result of sort of continued drinking. And it does concern me, and I do talk about those experiences and those friends with my kids to help them understand the risks of continuing to indulge and binge drink and party too much.
So thank you, Mrs. Brown, for joining me today on this podcast about talking about underage drinking in teens. So I just have one more last question. Overall, do you think that drinking underage is harmful to teens, and what are your best ways to prevent it?
I absolutely do think it's harmful. I think it's harmful because of the way we have structured it. And as I mentioned before in one of your previous questions, I feel like in some other European countries where it's legal, they don't have the same kinds of problems we do. I think the best ways to help are to continue to talk about it with your kids, keep it at the forefront of the conversation, talk about the risks, make sure they're safe, and just have a good understanding of the impact it could have overall on their overall health.